Welcome to this explosive breakdown of one of the most talked about moments in daytime television history. Just a few days ago, on the set of NBC's iconic Today Show, the air was thick with anticipation as music legend Chaka Khan graced the studio for what was billed as a celebratory interview. At 72 years young, Chaka, the queen of funk, with her powerhouse voice that has echoed through decades of hits like I'm Every Woman and Ain't Nobody, was there to discuss her latest fragrance line, a sultry new scent called Essence of Soul, inspired by her unapologetic journey through fame, heartbreak, and triumph. The studio lights gleamed off her signature bold makeup and flowing kaftan, a vibrant tapestry of African prints that screamed confidence and cultural pride. Roker, the affable weatherman turned pop culture interviewer, known for his warm smiles and dad jokes, kicked things off with the usual pleasantries, the camera panning across the bustling plaza below where fans had gathered, clutching signs that read Chaka Forever, and waving in the crisp October morning air. But beneath the surface of this seemingly light-hearted segment, tensions simmered like a pot about to boil over. Chaka, fresh off a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction and rumors of a biopic in the works, arrived with stories ready to spill tales of battling addiction, raising her daughter Indira, and clashing with industry giants like Prince, who once penned I Feel For You just for her. Ever the consummate host, leaned in with that trademark grin, microphone poised like a friendly scepter, asking about her evolution from Rufus frontwoman to solo diva. The audience at home, sipping their morning coffee, had no idea they were witnessing the prelude to chaos, as Chaka launched into a passionate monologue about the erasure of black women in music history, her voice rising like a crescendo in one of her anthems. Al nodded along, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of impatience. Little did viewers know, this interview had been fraught from the start. Producers had cut Chaka's time short to accommodate a weather update, and whispers from the control room suggested Al had prepped questions that veered too close to her past struggles with substance abuse, a topic she'd vowed never to revisit lightly again. The segment opened with a montage of her greatest hits, clips from her 2023 Hall of Fame speech where she belted out through the fire with raw emotion, tears streaming down her face as she honored fallen comrades like Whitney Houston. Fans tuned in expecting inspiration, but what they got was a masterclass in unfiltered authenticity clashing with the polished facade of network TV. Chaka's laughter filled the studio initially, rich and throaty, as she described the fragrance's top notes of jasmine and vanilla, evoking memories of her Chicago childhood in the projects, where she'd sneak into jazz clubs and dream of stages bigger than the living room couch. Al chuckled too, quipping about how the scent could make even his weather forecasts funky fresh, drawing polite applause from the live audience. But as the clock ticked toward the commercial break, the tone shifted subtly. Chaka, sensing the rush, began weaving in deeper threads about how the music industry chews up and spits out women of color, citing examples from Tina Turner to her own battles with Rufus producer Quincy Jones over creative control. Al, perhaps trying to steer back to safer waters, interjected with a question about her wild days in the 70s, referencing a tabloid-fueled story of infamous party where she'd allegedly out-partied David Bowie. The studio fell into a momentary hush, the kind that amplifies every rustle of paper and sip of water. Chaka's eyes narrowed, her manicured nails tapping rhythmically on the armrest, a telltale sign of the storm brewing. Viewers later recounted how their screens seemed to freeze in that instant, the vibrant energy of the Today Show momentarily eclipsed by an undercurrent of real, palpable discomfort. Backstage, Chaka's team had prepped her for fluff pieces, but Al's producers, under pressure from ratings dips, had pushed for edgier content to compete with the likes of The View's fiery debates. As Chaka paused, weighing her words like a boxer sizing up an opponent, Al pressed on, his voice light but insistent. Come on, Chaka, those stories make you the legend you are today. But to Chaka, it felt like a poke at old wounds, a dismissal of her growth into a sober, spiritually awakened matriarch who now mentors young artists through her foundation. The argument didn't erupt in screams sonatiato but in the quiet steel of Chaka's response. Al, honey, legends aren't built on gossip, they're forged in fire you wouldn't survive. The words hung in the air, laced with the kind of truth that cuts deeper than any shout, Social media ignited almost immediately, with #Chaka vs Al trending within minutes, tweets pouring in from fans defending her boundaries and critics accusing her of being too sensitive for TV. Clips circulated on TikTok, remixed with her songs, turning the moment into a viral anthem for authenticity. But to understand the full weight of this walk-off, we must rewind to the roots of Chaka's unbreakable spirit, a woman who rose from the ashes of personal demons to claim her throne, only to face yet another gatekeeper in the form of morning show etiquette. As the cameras rolled on, oblivious to the fractured lines forming, Chaka straightened her posture, her presence commanding the space like she owned the network. Al, sensing the shift, tried to pivot to her new album teasers, but the damage was done. The interview had crossed from celebration to confrontation, setting the stage for the dramatic exit that would dominate headlines for weeks. This wasn't just a spat, it was a reckoning, a bold statement from a black woman refusing to perform pain for entertainment. And as we delve deeper, you'll see how this moment echoes the battles Chaka has fought her entire career, from segregated stages to substance-fueled scandals, all culminating in this unscripted rebellion on national television. Stay tuned, because what follows is the unraveling of icons, the clash of eras, and the raw power of saying enough. Diving deeper into the heart of the storm, let's transport ourselves to that fateful morning in Rockefeller Center, where the Today Show's fourth hour buzzed with its usual mix of celebrity sparkle and caffeinated chatter. Chaka Khan, adorned in gold hoop earrings that caught the light like tiny suns, settled into the plush guest chair, her legs crossed elegantly, exuding the poise of someone who's stared down microphones and madness alike. Al Roker, in his crisp navy suit, adjusted his tie, a subtle ritual he performs before every tough segmenta, and launched into what should have been a softball. Chaka, your voice has been the soundtrack to so many lives. Tell us, what's the secret to that timeless fire? Her answer was poetry in motion, a lyrical riff on soul music's healing power, drawing parallels to her recent sobriety milestone of 20 years, celebrated quietly with her grandchildren over Zoom calls filled with laughter and homemade soul food. The audience leaned in, captivated, as Chaka described how music saved her from the abyss, from the days when heroin's grip nearly claimed her after Rufus disbanded in the 80s, leaving her adrift in a sea of bad contracts and worse company. But Al, perhaps misreading the room or following a producer's cue flashing on his earpiece, veered sharply. Speaking of fire, I remember reading about that epic 80s tour where you and the band partied so hard, it made Rolling Stone's wildest nights list. Spill the tea. What's one story we haven't heard? The question landed like a misplaced chord in a symphony, jarring and off-key. Chaka's smile tightened, her full lips pursing as memories flooded back, and not the glamorous haze of champagne toasts, but the dark underbelly of exploitation, where partying was code for survival in an industry that preyed on black artists' vulnerabilities. She paused, the silence stretching like taffy, before responding with measured fire. Al, those wild nights you romanticize? They almost killed me. My daughter watched me hit rock bottom, and I clawed my way out for her, not for your headlines. The studio temperature seemed to drop, co-hosts exchanging glances off-camera, the live audience shifting uncomfortably in their seats. Al, caught off guard, stammered a recovery. Of course, and we're all so proud of your journey. It's inspiring. But the damage rippled outward, Chaka's eyes flashing with the hurt of 1,000 microaggressions endured over 50 years in the spotlight. This wasn't isolated. It echoed her 2016 Twitter feud with Ryan Adams over cultural appropriation, or her candid 2023 interviews where she called out the Grammys for snubbing Rufus. Fans watching at home flooded comment sections, "Let Chaka heal in peace," versus "All was just being Funa, lighten up." The argument escalated not in volume but in intensity, Chaka leaning forward, her voice a velvet thunder, inspiring, try exhausting. Black women like me don't get to spill tea without it scolding us later. You want stories? Ask about the contracts that stole my royalties, or the labels that pitted us against each other. Al, his meteorologist's calm cracking, countered with what he thought was empathy. But that's what makes your story powerful, a resilience. To Chaka, it rang hollow, another white gatekeeper defining her narrative. The control room buzzed frantically, producers signaling cut to break, But the mix stayed hot, capturing every barbed word. As Chaka rose slowly, her caftan swirling like a cape of defiance, she fixed Al with a gaze that could melt steel. Resilience isn't your feel-good trope, Al, it's my lifeblood, and I won't bleed for ratings. With that, she turned on her heel, striding toward the exit, her entourage scrambling to follow, leaving Al frozen mid-sentence, the camera lingering on his stunned expression. The walk-off was poetic, Chaka pausing at the door to blow a kiss to the cheering fans outside, her silhouette framed against the New York skyline, a queen reclaiming her crown. Social media erupted in real time, with clips going mega viral, amassing millions of views as celebrities like Questlove tweeted support. Chaka said what we all feel: protect black women at all costs. Meanwhile, detractors piled on, calling it a diva meltdown, oblivious to the deeper context of Chaka's lifelong fight against being reduced to spectacle. To grasp the full gravity, consider her backstory. Born Yvette Marie Stevens in 1953, rechristened Chaka an emoji by black nationalists, she was a child prodigy marching with the Black Panthers at 11, her voice already a weapon for change. By 1973, Rufus catapulted her to fame. But success came laced with sexism and sabotage. Quincy Jones once confessed to underpaying her, a revelation that still stings. Fast forward to today, and this Today Show clash feels like destiny's full circle, Chaka refusing to be the entertaining crazy aunt of soul. As the segment cut to black, Al's co-hosts filled the awkward void with weather chit-chat, but the internet wouldn't let it die. Memes proliferated, Chaka's exit remixed to Tell Me Something Good, Al's face photoshopped onto storm clouds. Yet beneath the buzz, this was a pivotal stand, highlighting how even legends must navigate minefields of respect on platforms built for palatable feminism. Chaka later posted on Instagram from her hotel suite, a simple caption over a selfie: "Boundaries are my ballad. Grateful for the love." #Queen Code. Her words sparked global conversations on mental health and entertainment, therapists noting how such triggers can reopen trauma. Al, in a follow-up statement, expressed regret, calling it a misstep and admiration, but Chaka's silence spoke volumes. Her walk-off wasn't petulance, it was power, and as we peel back more layers, you'll see how this incident reignited debates on race, recovery, and representation, turning a morning show mishap into a movement. As the dust settled on that chaotic Today Show set, the world couldn't look away from the seismic shift Chaka Khan had just unleashed, her departure echoing like the final note of a soul-stirring ballad that leaves you breathless and begging for more. Back in the green room moments before airtime, Chaka had shared laughs with makeup artists, swapping stories of her glory days opening for Stevie Wonder, her laughter a melody that masked the nerves of vulnerability. But once seated across from Al, the dynamic flipped to his questions, intended as icebreakers, probed like scalpels into scars she'd long sealed with therapy and time. "Chaka, you've been open about your battles. How did rock bottom feel?" Al asked, his tone clinical, as if interviewing a case study rather than a living legend. Her response was a torrent. "Rock bottom? It was cold, lonely, and laced with betrayal from friends who supplied the poison, labels that profited off my pain. I lost custody fights, friends to overdoses, and nearly my voice screaming into the void." The rawness stunned the crew, a producer later leaking that they'd never heard Chaka so unguarded. Al, fumbling for connection, shared his own health scare as a kidney transplant in 2022 that humbled him, but to Chaka, it felt like false equivalence, minimizing her intersectional struggles as a black woman in a whitewashed industry. "Your story matters, Al, but mine's written in blood and blues, not boardroom battles," she retorted, her words slicing through the forced camaraderie. The argument intensified as Al doubled down, "That's why we need these stories to inspire others." Chaka's laugh was bitter, a chord struck wrong. Inspire or exploit? I've seen my pain packaged as edgy for Emmys, while real support systems starve. Viewers at home sense the fracture, phones lighting up with texts, "Is this real or scripted drama?" But it was achingly authentic, rooted in Chaka's 2019 memoir excerpts where she detailed waking up in strange hotel rooms, guitar in hand, unsure if she'd perform or perish. The walk-off crystallized in slow motion, the Chaka standing, her chair scraping like a record scratch, declaring, "I'm not your cautionary tale today. I've got fragrance to launch and futures to uplift." Al reached out instinctively. "Chaka, let's talk this through." But she was already gliding away, head high, dignity intact, the door clicking shut behind her like a mic drop heard round the world. In the aftermath, NBC scrambled, airing a pre-taped promo for her sent to fill the void, but the internet had its feast. #Walk Off with Chaka trended globally, with Ariana Grande posting a throwback to covering I'm Every Woman, captioning, "The blueprint, protect her at all costs." Critics, however, dissected Al's intent, some praising his bold journalism, others slamming it as tone-deaf, especially given his history of lightning heavy topics with humor. To contextualize, Chaka's career is a tapestry of triumphs threaded with trials from her 1978 solo debut peaking at #1, to the 90s comeback with Rain Dance in the Sky amid rehab stints that tabloids devoured. Her walk-off wasn't impulsive, it was the culmination of boundaries tested one too many times. From feuding with Mary J. Blige over sampling rights to calling out Kanye West for unauthorized tributes. As she exited into the plaza's roar, fans enveloped her in hugs, chanting lyrics from Sweet Thing, turning the moment into impromptu karaoke therapy. Al, left to wrap the hour solo, cracked a joke about stormy weather in the studio, but his eyes betrayed uneasy, a rare crack in the weatherman's armor. Later that evening, Chaka FaceTimed her daughter from a jazz lounge, debriefing over sax solos and sips of sparkling water, affirming her choice. "Mama didn't raise no doormat." The incident sparked think pieces in the New York Times on trauma tourism and interviews, experts arguing that hosts like Al, despite good intentions, often center their curiosity over guests' comfort. Chaka's fragrance launch, ironically, skyrocketed sales up 300% as supporters bought bottles in solidarity, each spritz a subtle fuck you to the doubters. Yet, the human cost lingered. Al confided to colleagues about feeling gut-punched, prompting internal diversity training at NBC. For Chaka, it was liberation, a reminder that at 72, she's earned the right to curate her narrative, not hand it over for dissection. This clash illuminated broader fissures in media, how black icons are expected to perform gratitude amid gratitude, their complexities commodified for clicks. As hashtags evolved into op-eds, celebrities rallied, Oprah reposted clips with "Truth Hurts, but silence kills," while 50 Cent trolled with memes of Al dodging rain. But Chaka remained above the fray, channeling the energy into her foundation's youth workshops, teaching kids to harness hurt into harmony. Her walk-off became legend, a viral vignette studied in comms classes as the art of elegant exit. And as we explore further, the ripples extend to industry reforms, with guests now demanding safe word protocols for sensitive topics. Al's reflection, shared in a podcast, admitted, "I learned humility the dial listening over leading." Chaka, ever the Phoenix, emerged unscathed. Her next move, a surprise collab with SZA, blending generations in a track about unbreakable bonds. This wasn't the end of their stories, it was a pivotal verse, reminding us that true stars shine brightest when they refuse to dim. Peeling back the glamour, the real intrigue of Chaka Khan's Today Show exodus lies in the unspoken scripts that govern celebrity interviews, those invisible rules that demand smiles over substance and anecdotes over authenticity, rules Chaka shattered with the grace of a jazz improvisation gone rogue. Hours before the taping, in a sun-drenched dressing room overlooking the bustling streets of Manhattan, Chaka reviewed talking points with her publicist, emphasizing fragrance notes and Hall of Fame highs, explicitly nixing recovery roadmaps after a prior Oprah sit-down left her drained for weeks. Al, meanwhile, huddled with writers in a nearby conference room, scribbling questions laced with nostalgia to remember that MTV Awards clash with Madonna? Aiming to juice ratings amid cord-cutting woes. When the red light blinked on, the facade held briefly, Chaka gushing about her scent base of sandalwood, evoking the warmth of a lover's regret, Al beaming like a proud uncle. But as she segued into empowerment anthems for her docuseries pitch, Al's pivot hit like a wrong turn. "Chaka, your candor on addiction has helped so many. What's one low you laugh about now?" Her face, a canvas of expressive brows and knowing eyes, clouded over, The laugh she mustered hollow as an echo in an empty club. Laugh, Al. Those lows weren't punchlines, they were pits I dug out of with therapy, faith, and family bailouts that cost me everything. She fired back, her tone shifting from velvet to steel wool. The exchange crackled with subtext to Al embodying the well-meaning but oblivious ally, Chaka the weary warrior tired of educating on the fly. Co-hosts fidgeted, one whispering off mic, "Wrap it," but momentum carried them into deeper waters. Chaka elaborated, voice rising with the fervor of a sermon. "I lost my home, my health, watching my kids suffer because the world wanted the troubled diva trope, not the truth." Al, defensive now, leaned in, "But sharing builds bridges." To which Chaka countered, "Bridges for who? Your bookers or my healing?" The studio, usually a hive of controlled energy, felt claustrophobic, the argument a pressure cooker venting steam. Her decision to walk crystallized in that beat of silence, Chaka murmuring, "I've built enough bridges, time to burn one," before striding out, her heels clicking a defiant rhythm down the hallway. Al's attempt at salvaging Chaka, "Come back, we're family here," fell flat, the plea underscoring the power imbalance at play. Outside, paparazzi swarmed, but Chaka waved them off with queenly dismissal, slipping into a waiting SUV bound for a empowerment brunch with Taraji P. Henson. The fallout was swift and multifaceted. TMZ broke the story with grainy exit footage, framing it as diva tantrum, but Black Twitter flipped the script. Trending #Chaka stood up with testimonials from survivors crediting her vulnerability for their own recoveries. Sales of her memoir spiked, readers devouring chapters on her 90s relapse after a bitter divorce, where she'd pawned Grammys for fixes, only to reclaim them through sheer will. Al faced backlash too, late-night hosts like Jimmy Fallon ribbing his weathering the storm gaffe, while allies defended him as just doing his job. Deeper dives revealed patterns. Chaka's 2022 Versus battle with Stephanie Mills had similar undercurrents, where post-show press grilled her on beef rumors instead of artistry. This walk-off, though, felt watershed, prompting guest clauses in contracts for trauma vetoes, a nod to her advocacy. In quiet moments post-incident, Chaka journaled by her hotel window, overlooking the Hudson, penning lyrics about exits as entrances to self, later debuted in a tiny desk-at-home session that garnered 10 million views. Al, introspecting over golf with Matt Lauer alums, grappled with privilege blind spots, vowing more prep on cultural contexts. The event catalyzed dialogues in Hollywood, panels at SXSW dissecting the interview as interrogation, with Chaka invited as keynote, her speech a blistering takedown of performative allyship. Fans sent fan art of Chaka as a superhero cape flowing from the Today logo. Wild detractors whispered of blacklisting fears, but her phone buzzed with offers, a Netflix special, a Vogue cover. This wasn't mere drama, it was disruption, forcing media to confront how it extracts from marginalized voices without reciprocity. Chaka's essence, unyielding authenticity, a refusal to let her crown slip for convenience. As echoes faded, she mentored a young singer via Igliv, advising, "Walk when they push, run when they pull." Al's growth arc continued in subtle ways. A segment on mental health with more lived experience hosts. Ultimately, the walk-off wove into Chaka's lore, a chapter where she didn't just survive the spotlight but redefined its rules, proving that at any age, reinvention is the ultimate riff.